Hi, everybody. Um, my name is Yujin Tang. I was a former software engineer at Amazon. I've been working in software since I was in high school at IBM and Encino, and Amazon are the companies that I've worked at. I've built a profitable business, and I've served as the CTO of three different startups now. And I gave this talk initially in Emerge, which is an excellent accelerator that helps connect you to investors and advisors. And one thing, the reason why I gave this talk in there was because I saw that there was a lot of trouble for people to look for a CTO. And so I wanted to kind of give a presentation on how do you find a CTO, what to look for in a CTO, and so here we go. So who's this for? This is mainly aimed at entrepreneurs with little to no technical background, entrepreneurs who want to outsource their coding to someone other than themselves, and entrepreneurs who want some sort of technical guidance. So why should we get a CTO? You should get a CTO because you need someone to help you define your MVP, your minimum viable product / minimum valuable product. You need a CTO to ensure that your product can scale, and you need a CTO that can translate features to technical specifications. All too often, I see a bunch of entrepreneurs who say, without a technical background, who say something like, I want this to be able to do X, Y, and Z, but they don't know how they want it to get done, or something like that, right? So the features to technical specifications, for example, like maybe, actually, you know what? I'm gonna elaborate on this later, so I'll do that then. So, what do you look for in a CTO? Basically, you want to look for someone who has software engineering experience. This is really important. If your CTO doesn't have any experience as a software engineer, then I don't see how they're going to help you build a software product. Once again, all of my talks are based around software products. So you definitely want someone with software engineering experience. You learn a lot just from doing software engineering for a year. There's things that are things to consider, scalability, extensibility, reliability, all of these different parts of software that you don't really things that you don't see from the outside, right? And then you want someone who has a business to technical translation ability. So someone who can translate your business needs into technical specifications, right? Into technical features. So for example, your business needs to, be able to keep track of some sort of sales or something. In which case, the technical features would be we need to be able to keep track of all of this different information about the sale, like who it sold to, what the product was, what was the price, when was it sold, when was it delivered, when was the accounts received, and all of these different things, right? So you need someone who can translate these business things into technical things. And then you also want someone who can estimate workloads, right? You want someone who can kind of have an idea of being this is how long it should take. It's, obviously workloads are just estimations. You never really have anything that's this is how long it's going to take exactly. That's just not really possible. But you can definitely look for someone who has an idea of how to estimate how long things will take. And really good estimation just comes with experience. So once again, software engineering experience is very important. So software engineering, what does this give you? What does the software experience give you? It gives you the ability to define what a feature is. If you've never done software engineering, then it's kind of hard to be this is what a feature is. But you can define features in many different ways. You can define feature sets. You can define many parts of features. You can break them down, things like that. The ability to articulate why you would use a technology. So, someone who can kind of look at something and be here's the pros and cons. An example of this would be SQL and NoSQL. You should know okay, SQL is great for persistent storage. You have to change things less. It's good for managing very many linked variables, kind of things like that. And NoSQL is better for if you want something that's really fast and you're just doing a lot of create, read, update, or delete transactions. It's good for things that get updated a lot, basically. So, you want someone to articulate why you use technology. And sometimes parts of these include things just like pricing, right? So then you just want someone who knows a lot about different technologies so that they have an idea of like what's used for what. And some pricing differences are going to be at different scales. And then finally, you want someone who has the ability to design a scalable architecture. Once again, like this is, when I'm giving these talks, I'm kind of giving these in the idea of having like a, if you building an app that's going to scale to like 1 million users, right? Like if you just want to build an app that's going to like, you're going to show your friends in something, then you don't need to design a scalable architecture. You can just throw something together. Like it doesn't really matter. So this is mainly for like, building apps for like businesses and startups. Let's go to the business technical translations thing. I'm going to give these 3 examples are Twitter, Venmo, and Instagram. I'm just going to give, a slight overview of what they do technically and what they do from a business or non-technical point of view. So let's start with Twitter. Twitter is essentially like, from a non-technical, from a business kind of point of view, what does Twitter do? It essentially allows you to send text updates to a board. It just allows you to send text updates somewhere, basically, and then it shows them, right? So what is required for this from a technical point of view? From a technical point of view, what do you need in terms of features to build Twitter, right? You need a user account, and then you need to know what's involved in a user account, right? You got to have the profile, you got to have the username, you got to have some sort of email or phone verification, a password, you got to have like the bio, the picture. There's a ton involved in just user accounts, right? But let's say, you need the user account, you need the ability to send and retrieve these texts, right? So you got to have somewhere to send these, these messages to, somewhere to save these messages, some way to retrieve these messages, some way to retrieve messages specifically tied to a user. And then you got to be able to follow other users, right? So you got to be able to be like, you got to have some sort of access control, like which users can see these other users' tweets. What tweets do you see as a user? You should see all of the tweets from your, the people that you follow in a specific order. So you have to have the ability to pull in reverse chronological order, a set of users' messages. You have to have the ability to block people. So you have to have the ability to say, this user can't see my things. You have to have the ability to follow people. So you have to say, I want to see. You have to have the ability to add a user to your, list of users that you want to see and things like that. Let's go to Instagram next. Instagram is very similar to Twitter, right? Instead of sending, it's basically Twitter, but everything has to have an image to it. So, once again, you have to have the user accounts, you have to have the accounts interact with each other, but Instagram has the added challenge of everything has to have a picture attached to it, right? So you gotta have somewhere to save the pictures, somewhere to archive, or somewhere to somehow, some way to justify, or some way to tell whether or not the picture's in the archive or if the picture's not in the archive. Some way to add, like hashtags to the post, which actually you can do on Twitter too. I forgot about that. And then Instagram, I think Twitter added this recently too, but Instagram, also has like stories, they have reels, and they have a ton of these other things. So you've got to have like the algorithm of suggested, like how can we tell what this user likes? And then once you can tell what this user likes, maybe that's like done through some sort of machine learning algorithm, nearest neighbors or something like that. And you got to be able to, have once again, just like Twitter, you got to be able to have private and public accounts. Instagram also has the added thing of you have to be able to change your Instagram handle. I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty neat. So yeah, these things are kind of all what you need for that. Venmo is slightly different, right? So here you have to be able to access bank accounts, and you have to be able to send and retrieve money, and you have to be able to verify people's identities with their phone numbers. There's a QR code thing, so you have to be able to send people to specific, you have to be able to generate QR codes basically. But I think Venmo's biggest kind of challenge in comparison to Twitter and Instagram, the difference is, instead of having all these bios and stuff that you have to have to your user, you really have these the user name, right, and the user phone number kind of linked, and then the main challenge, you have to be able to integrate with all of these financial services with banks. And then handling money itself is also like a different challenge. So yeah, you have to have someone who can kind of like articulate what the challenges are and what the features that you need to build from a technical perspective are. And so I just wanted to give you some examples of a business technical translation so that if you hear it from someone else, if you ask someone, here's what I want in my business, here are the features, and they give you some technical specifications, you can kind of have an idea of what it should sound like. And obviously you want someone to be able to estimate your workloads. You want to be able to separate things into feasible workloads, right? Like generally these are sprints, 2 weeks, how long does it take to do that? This is good so that you have time estimates and complexity estimates. So time estimates are so when I first started out software development, my first time estimate was off by like a month. I was like, yeah, this will take me like a month. This is easy. And then it ended up taking me like 2 months. And I was like, damn. And you'll have complexity estimates, just like how complex does it actually do something, right? Like, for example, let's say you have a user account. Well, added complexity comes from being able to edit the bio. Added complexity comes from adding the bio. More complexity comes if you want to have videos instead of pictures. More complexity comes if you want to edit the username, right? So you have to have complexity estimates as well. So, yeah. So how do you get a CTO? You can look on LinkedIn. You go on LinkedIn and you basically are like, hey, I'm building a startup, looking for possible CTOs or something. I don't know, but this is a way. There's your personal network. This is probably the best way, right? Friends of a friend. I talked about this in one of my other videos, but having like the LinkedIn or a friend of a friend or come to Tech Founder Connect. This is what I wanted to start Tech Founder Connect for. Was to help people like find a CTO basically. There's also another company, I forgot to put this on here, but there's another company run by this guy in Boston. His name is Igor. It's called Fast CTO, and that's pretty awesome. He's got like CTOs from Accenture, and he's got retired CTOs who will like you can pay like a slightly lower rate to kind of get, because these people are like basically like balling in the money, and they're just like out to help people. So so those are some ways to get a CTO, and I hope this has been valuable to you. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. DM me on Twitter. If you have my phone number, text me. You know how it is. All right, peace out.